So today, or this afternoon, this evening, I'm going to take you through the Blue Heart project, a little bit about what it is, about flooding in Eastbourne, tell you what Blue Heart's been doing, what our future plans are, and then at the end, if you've been listening, hopefully you should pass my little quiz. So, to kick us off, very wordy slide, don't worry about reading it, but this is basically to tell you that Blue Heart is one of the 25 Flood and Coastal Resilience Innovation Programme projects around the UK. So we are this little purple one here, and as you can see, there's quite a good spread around the country. So back in 2019, the government announced £25 million for innovation projects. And at the time, East Sussex County Council said we would like to have a go at getting some of this money. We put together a bid for Blue Heart, and we were successful. We did come out with the least amount of money out of the whole country, but I think hopefully you'll see afterwards we're doing some really interesting things with what we've been able to achieve. So alongside us and the 25 other projects, there's also a couple of coastal projects that got some additional money. So these projects all run through till 2027. They all have the same end date and the same goal to finish up by then and do what we can in the time we've been given with the money that we've been given. So who are we? I heard someone say earlier that Blue Heart was linked to the Eastbourne Lakes. And our name does come from that. When we were looking at setting up Blue Heart way back in 2019, we were looking at the Eastbourne Lakes. And when you look at them on a map, it sits at the heart of Eastbourne. And being water and blue, the name Blue Heart came about. And it's stuck ever since. So we are made up of East Sussex County Council and the flood risk management team. So these are full-time staff who work at the council, dealing with the day-to-day water issues, but sometimes they get pulled on to the Blue Heart project as well. We're also supported by a range of other people who help out on all the extra tasks that are needed to support Blue Heart, because as much as East Sussex County Council would love to, there's just not enough people to help this project stay alive without having others that come in. So as you can see, we've got people such as Chris. He comes from the University of Exeter. So we have academic support. Harriet and Eleanor come from their own companies or consultancies to help out on some of the technical things. Then I feature twice because I actually only took this role on about a month ago. So if you have any very tricky questions, I'll do my best to answer them, but I am very fresh to the project manager position. Before this, I was in the Suds for Schools post, which you'll hear a bit more about later. So what are we doing? So Blue Heart works in Eastbourne and southern Wealden. This is our area. It's based on the catchment, the water catchment, so where the streams all flow, hit the land and flow out to the ocean, rather than geographical boundaries that you might typically see, which is why southern Wealden sneaks in there. And Blue Heart, much like yourselves, are looking back at the past as well as using technology from the future to understand Eastbourne, but specifically how water moves through Eastbourne, because Eastbourne is pretty special when it comes to water. As you can see, there's a lot of reasons for why we picked Eastbourne. East Sussex County Council, as you may be aware, work all around the county. So Eastbourne's only one of the places that we cover, but why did we pick Eastbourne? And there are a lot of reasons why Eastbourne was picked. We have had historic flooding in Eastbourne. I'm not sure if you remember 2015 when we had flooding here, as you can see from some of these pictures. We have had flooding since, but 2015 was the last sort of big event when you talk about flooding that people sometimes think about. We also have over 4,000 properties at risk from surface water flooding. So when it rains and it hits the ground and runs off, that's called surface water flooding. So over 4,000 properties in Eastbourne alone are at risk, and an additional 350 are at risk from river flooding. So the numbers are adding up for Eastbourne being a good place to look at. And when you put this into monetary value, it's over £150 million worth of damage that potentially can happen as a result of flooding, whether this be to properties, to businesses, infrastructure. It's a lot of money. And also, we considered that Eastbourne has no warning service. So at the moment, other than the weather that everybody gets when you look at the news. There's no way to warn people in Eastbourne if there is an event coming. And lastly, because Eastbourne has kind of been forgotten in the past in terms of looking at water and flooding, and there's a loss of knowledge and data in the area. That's another one I say, data. You all say data, I believe. So this is a map before we started the project, and these little dots here are sensors in Eastbourne, whether that be rain gauges that are taking weather data, or a couple of them on the beach taking tidal data. But there's only 4 in the Eastbourne area. And when you look at the size of Eastbourne, and also, as I'm sure you're aware, how much the weather varies in Eastbourne, it's very hard to understand what is happening when there's only 4 points. And Eastbourne's pretty special in the fact that we're coastal, so we get tidal water coming in, and it can cause flooding when our pipes back up and can't get out back into the ocean. We have a risk of the rain coming down. Eastbourne's also prone to groundwater coming up. Sometimes some of you may have noticed if you put a spade in your garden at the wrong time and you dig down a bit, you will get water coming up in Eastbourne. And we also are prone to river flooding. So Eastbourne has all sorts of flooding in the mix that make it really difficult to understand what is going on in Eastbourne, which is why we said we'll have a go at working out what water's doing. So quickly just to run you through the goals of Blue Heart: improve and understand our knowledge of the catchment. As I said, we want to address these data gaps. We've only got those 4 sensors, and we would really like to know more about what's happening and understand how water's moving around the catchment. We also want to engage with the community, whether this be talking about flooding and flood resilience and raising awareness, but also we really are interested in hearing about your experiences and learning from you, because ultimately it's the people that live in Eastbourne who know Eastbourne. And anything that councils do, whether it's Terminus Road I heard earlier again, it's the people of Eastbourne that have to live through these changes. So it's all about talking to communities and really understanding from yourselves what's going on, and ensuring that you're at the heart of decisions as well. And lastly, lots of words, but I'll just talk again for you. We want to create a dynamic network system. So those 4 sensors I talked about are not very good. We at Blue Heart said we can do much better. We want to try new technology. And the money we were given as part of the FCRIP program, the preface is that we have to try new things. It's an innovation program, it's a research program, and as much as we'd like to, we can't do the business as usual and fix the everyday issues. That's something the councils are tasked with doing. Our money is not allowed to do that. We have to try something new. So we really wanted to work on creating a telemetry network of sensors and monitors across Eastbourne to understand what was going on. And hopefully once we understood, we wanted to use that information to feed back in real time what's happening with water around the catchment. But so you might be sitting here and saying, Eastbourne doesn't flood. I hear it all the time. I was at the Spring Water Fest, I heard it there. Everyone says it to me. And that's fine, because if you sit here now and you just picture flooding, I'm sure many of you will think of things like this. Massive river floods. Maybe things like this, where the roads are unusable and houses are being inundated with water. Maybe something like this, where a river's burst its banks and the water is spilling out. But often when you talk about flooding in Eastbourne, people don't know that we do have our examples and we have our regular examples too. If I said to you the Star Inn in Eastbourne, some of you might know of the pub. Star Inn is very prone to flooding in Eastbourne. And although it doesn't often make the news, it does sometimes make the news and often has to close its business as a result of flooding. And this is just one example of businesses in Eastbourne that are prone to regular flooding that don't make the news because aren't maybe as grand and exciting as the river flooding, but it does happen. But I also want to make the point that maybe flooding doesn't have to be grand for it still to have an impact. It doesn't always have to make the news for communities to be impacted by this. So if I said to you, have you ever seen water ponding in Hampden Park? Maybe road flooding on the way to Seaford. I know a lot of people have seen this one. Shinewater Park again, quite often you can't use the footpaths around the park because it's been flooded. Water in people's gardens. Quite often I talk to people and you have stagnant water there for sometimes months on end when it's too wet for it to drain away. And schools around the area really prone to having their entrances blocked and students can't go to school. And all of these things have impacts on the community, but maybe don't make the news. So when we talk about flooding, our definition we've loosely come up with is always just water where water shouldn't be. It doesn't have to be major. It doesn't always have to be negative too. Sometimes rivers want to flood and it's a good thing. It's just water where it doesn't want to be. And sometimes that can have an impact on the community. So, if you wouldn't mind helping me out for a few minutes, one of the things I would really appreciate is we are looking to improve our knowledge in the catchment. One of the ways we're doing that is asking people such as yourselves if you can think of any other examples of where in Eastbourne, Southern Wealden, East Sussex, the wider area, you've experienced flooding. Doesn't have to be yourself, doesn't have to be recent. Any examples, it might just be ponding on the side of the road. It didn't have to have any major impacts, but we are trying to build up our knowledge base, and it's very hard to do when there's so few records in the media and online and that sort of thing for Eastbourne. So scattered around the room, there are some post-it notes and pens, and if at any point you think, oh, I've got an example, if you wouldn't mind just writing down some details about what you can remember, it can be as little or as many details as you want. That'd be really, really great, and we can just add this into our database of what we're trying to build up a picture of Eastbourne and where flooding is happening. So whenever you want to do that, that would be wonderful. This could be river flooding, flooding from rain, could be coming from the land, could be sewer overflows. I haven't really touched on this yet, but Eastbourne is quite prone to sewers popping and overflowing, and this is another form of flooding too, which we are also very interested in. And then the groundwater and tidal inundation. And if by any chance you happen to have any pictures you wouldn't mind sharing with us, on the Blue Heart website, if you just Google Blue Heart, we're the second one that comes up after the blue emoji. Don't click on the blue emoji. We'd be really grateful if you could send photos to us too, because again, it's just building up a log of knowledge from the community to pull together to better understand Eastbourne. So, what has Blue Heart been doing? Now I get the pleasure of telling you what my awesome team have been up to since 2019 around Eastbourne. I've broken this down by different work packages that we've been working on, hopefully to tell you all about what's been done and where we're going in the future. So first up, we have telemetry. So phase one of our telemetry project, if you remember that map with the 4 sensors, we're now looking at a few more than 4. We had 20 more put in across the Eastbourne area. 7 of these were boreholes, so that's for groundwater levels, seeing how these fluctuate over time. We had 7 water level sensors that go in the rivers, again, to tell us how water's fluctuating through the river. And then 6 in the sewer, again, level sensors tell us how the sewers are going up and down. We get data through every 5 minutes to 1 hour, depending on where the sensor is. And this uploads to our system between every day and 1 hour. So we get these beautiful graphs that pop out and often don't tell us very much, but we are getting to the point now where we have enough data where we can start to see patterns and trends and use this to understand how the water's truly moving. And this is an example of a sensor that's gone in. They're really inconspicuous. So this is the sensor in the river here, and then this is our battery packs and the sensor that pings through a cellular network. So we have some problems in Eastbourne because the reception can be a bit patchy. But they all run on the cellular network. And so far, touch wood, we've only had one vandalised. So I'm letting you know what they look like now, and I'm hoping afterwards we don't end up with a few of these missing. For phase 2 was the expansion of our monitoring. An additional 52 water level sensors were put in the rivers. So as you can see, we're starting to get a little bit more of a spread across the area. And alongside this, we had 15 rain gauges installed. So most of these went into our schools, and some of them went into community venues, such as the library and the town hall. So trying to get places where we could, rather than clusters, get a spread. And this is what our phase 2 sensors look like. So they are a grey box on the side of the river. If any of you ever take the train past Hampton Park, you can see one right by the train station. So if you keep an eye out, there's a little footbridge that crosses and a sensor. So now that I've said that, you might notice it. And then phase 3 was the big one. Phase 3, we have all of these sensors now. We have over 400 sewer level monitors, which were put in by Southern Water, so the water company, rather than Blue Heart project. We put in 25 sensors in our schools that we've done a separate project with. Also 15 gully monitors on the highways, which was really important because, as I mentioned, a lot of the flooding we see regularly is on the roads. So we were really interested in getting some gully sensors in on the highways. And we also have 15 more from Natural England and the Pevensey and Cookmere Water Level Management Board. The final phase of this still to come is we're looking at putting 5 more boreholes in to better understand the groundwater, and 5 more flow sensors along the beach, because the beach is an area where we haven't got good information about how the tides are impacting the piped network. So as of this moment, 518 sensors around the area, which is award-winning in a number of ways. As far as we're aware, we're the only place in the UK that has this many sensors per the area. We've taken this to Germany as well to do European conferences and talks, and no one else has had as many sensors per area as Eastbourne. So we are world leading in this technology. We're also leading in the UK because this is the first time ever that a water company, a council, and the Water Level Management Board have come together to share all this information in one place. And a lot of this is publicly available too. So on our website, you can see this live at any time, what's happening. And that's never been done before around the country. We were the first to do it, to get those different companies to talk to each other for the greater good of the community, was something we considered a really big win. So we're really, really happy about that and very excited to have done it. So where to next for our telemetry? This is something we call real-time control. So throwing it back again to the funding for this project being for research and innovation, real-time control is something that's been done quite extensively in Europe, but hasn't really been done in the UK. And that is where we can take this live data and use it in real time to change our management assets, whether that be sluice gates, whether that be locking on our pipes, whether that be slightly lowering or holding back water to raise the levels of our ponds. All of these are examples of real-time control. And we are looking to trial this in Eastbourne on 2 different assets. So at the moment, we're looking at picking a place that's low risk. So if we do it and it goes wrong, it's not going to impact anybody's property. But also a place that's going to be beneficial, that we can monitor and see whether this is worthwhile and whether people like the EA and DEFRA should be spending their money to do this on a wider scale around the UK. So that's where we're heading to in the last sort of year and a half of our project. And we're also looking to drop that whopping number of 518 down, because that, frankly, is too many sensors for the area. It's expensive to maintain in the long term. We now need to work out what that sweet number is that we can share with the rest of the UK and tell them, this is what you need, this is the optimal number. So that's where we're heading with telemetry. Next, engagement and communications. So our comms team, we are really lucky to have a full-time staff member that works purely on community engagement, which is something quite unique when you work in an engineering sector like myself. Sometimes we get quite into the technical, and it's been a real pleasure to have someone full-time on this, as well as a couple of other part-time staff, and as well as a couple of community members that have dipped in and out from time to time. So one of the things we've done that you might have heard of is the Blue Heart Community Fund. So from 2023 to 2025, we've done the Community Fund, and we've helped fund things like the plastic-free Eastbourne water fountain. We've worked with Water Cycle, as well as a lot of allotment and garden societies to help support their efforts. So for example, Treeborn did a tree planting with Auckland's Junior School, where I believe they put over 400 trees in. So that was a great one to be a part of. In 2024, we had the opportunity to support more community groups again. One to point out that was really neat was the District Model Engineering Club, who were experiencing flooding at their site around the railway. So we were able to provide money for them to reshape their land, to plant it out and help stop the marshiness from being there for months at a time across winter. And the most recent one, the 2025 fund, we had £25,000 to put towards some community projects. So again, lots of allotments and community garden ones, so you might be familiar with some of these. My personal favourite from this selection was the Mint House in Pevensey, which some of you might be aware of. It's the old Tudor building right by the castle. So they've recently got a grant to help renovate and fix up the Mint House, but they came to us asking for support with the drainage because the foundations of the property were constantly damp, and they wanted to improve the drainage to not only help save the house, but turn their outdoor area into an educational space where people who came through could look at the drainage and interact with the water butts and things like that. So we're really excited to be part of the Mint House project that's going to be going forward for a number of years, more longer than Blue Heart, I think. And you might have noticed that there's an on-hold one there, but that will be picking up soon. That's just a landowner dispute, that one. Someone saying that they owned the land and someone else saying they owned the land. So once it's worked out who owns the land, we'll be progressing with this one. Some other public events we've been able to do. We've been able to work with a lot of local historians. So our friends at the Mint House, actually, we've worked with them in the past as well to do a number of historic walks through Eastbourne, where we've followed the old historic streams that are now buried underground. We've also been able to work with Polegate, which has been really exciting because people in Polegate have had a lot more of that visible flooding that we looked at earlier on, a lot more of the extreme ponding, and businesses have recently, more recently than Eastbourne, felt the impact of flooding. So it's been really good to be able to branch outside Eastbourne as well as being here. And the most recent thing we've done, you may or may not have seen, was the pop-up shop, which was in the gather space up in the mall by the train station. So we had a local artist paint the inside of an antique shop and make it look like it was flooded. And it was a great success. People, when you walked inside, there were a number of community events and activities again, as well as our real-time monitoring up there. Interestingly, a lot of people wanted to buy things from the shop window, despite them being flooded. There's a lot of people interested in the violin and the paintings in the window. We were just there. We were there for a weekend, and unfortunately, it was maybe the sunniest weekend that Eastbourne had had. So the footfall wasn't massive. It was also the same weekend as the Spring Water Fest, so there was a lot of things going on in Eastbourne that weekend. But the people that did come by really enjoyed it. So we thought that was a very cool way to talk to people whilst they're out and about shopping. Some other ways you can get involved if you feel like it. As I mentioned, you can share your flooding photos on our website. And we also have a community map on our website where we're just interested in points of interest around Eastbourne. Don't have to be related to water. It might be historic places of interest. It might be community places of interest, cultural places of interest. It might just be like where you like to walk your dog. All these things come together to help paint a picture of how people in Eastbourne are using the space in Eastbourne. And that's all really useful data for us to combine with our weather data and see where the community is and where we should be looking at more. We've also, this is a little bit of a plug for us, we've got this thing called the Lego Flood House. So this was created for our schools, and maybe if you were watching the One Show at the right time, there was actually a segment on the One Show about this. Half of the house, if you flip it around, has been flooded. There's some people in there looking very scared. The water's coming up. They're getting rescued. And the other half of the house has done measures to help protect their home, like put their boxes up high out of the way of water. They've got furniture that's easy to move, things like that. And we created this for schools. So at the moment, we have 3 Lego houses. One's touring Scotland, one's with the Environment Agency, and one's sitting on my office desk. But we have a page online where you can vote for the Lego Flood House, and if it gets to a certain number of votes, Lego will consider making it into a kit that you can buy in stores. So we're hoping, we're not optimistic, we're not quite close to it, but we're hoping one day it will get there, because at the moment it takes about £600 to buy this, whereas if Lego is able to create it, we're hoping it will be a lot more affordable for schools and we can roll this out a lot further than just our 3 little Lego houses. So where to next for our community engagement team? We have something called the community menu coming up. So through our learnings and our discussions over the past sort of 3 years in Eastbourne, we've learned that people go along a river of flooding and water, and they start out as, this is not relevant to me, I don't know and I don't care anything about it. And then you move along the river to being aware of it, and then being aware about risk, and then knowing what to do to be prepared, and then being willing to help others around you. So with our community menu, we thought, what do we have in Blue Heart? We have a lot of people and a lot of skills that we're hoping we could share with the community. So our full-time comms and engagement person, as I said, she's volunteered to go into the community and help with their comms and engagement, maybe write a comms plan, maybe help with social media. I myself have volunteered to go talk to any schools or any community groups that may be interested. We work with people in all sorts of sectors, whether it be the more technical side or the less technical side. And the hope is that if you're interested in us coming to help you out, maybe you'll spend 2 minutes talking to us about what we would like to talk about too. And hopefully we can find a way to weave that in so it's mutually beneficial for everybody. So that's coming in the future. If you have any community groups other than yourselves that are maybe looking for some skills to support, the Blue Heart website will have some more details. But we're more than happy to come and help out however we can. So, moving on to SUDS for Schools. I hope it's gone okay. Stretch if everyone needs a stretch. We're almost there. SUDS for Schools is a project that if you remember my little bubble when I was in 2 roles, SUDS for Schools was my previous role. So SUDS, S-U-D-S, very clever wordplay, stands for Sustainable Drainage Systems, but also, SUDS in the shower. And these are used either in existing drainage or new drainage to replace the grey and old drainage types that are only there to take water and move them away. These have a purpose, of course they do, but in a lot of places we need SUDS which are able to offer multiple benefits such as green space, improving water quality by treating the water as they move through the drainage. In the case of water butts, you're able to reuse water for other purposes, which also helps with drought, which is also becoming increasingly common. And so this program we did, SUDS for Schools, is just wrapped up at the end of March. We worked with 9 schools in the area, and we've just got funding to work with another 14 schools. So it's been a very successful program. We get to go into the schools. We have the pleasure of working with them for up to 3 days, doing outdoor activities with the water, making it nice and fun, the clay as you can see there. And then the students design what they want to see in their schools, and we do our best to deliver it for them. So I've got some examples of what we've been doing. This is Shinewater Primary School. So you can see up here some of the students' drawings. They were very interested in their school logo and school colours. I think maybe the teachers influenced them a little bit here, but also really interested in concepts of weather and rain clouds and rivers. And we took these designs and we came up with a water butt area for them, which incorporates the vines and some of the other elements. And then we took this design for the front of the school. The teachers really wanted a place where the students could take some time out if they needed it at the front of the school, and also a lot of them have problems with wanting to come to school, so they wanted the front space to be really inviting. And this is what we came out with in the end. And these clouds here have a large gutter behind them. When it rains, these clouds rain too onto the planters. So it's a little bit interactive for the students as well. And this is Pevensey and West Ham School. So again, we have the students' drawings. In this case, we actually took the rainbow that one of the students drew and we put this behind one of the planters. So this is the actual drawing from the student that we were able to do. And hopefully this will play. Ooh. Here we go. You should be able to see the rain clouds in action. This went in about January this year, and the plants already have about tripled in size. These have absolutely thrived, and the school's incredibly happy with this because this is again where they drop their students into the school. It's now become a space for them to sit on their way into school with a beautiful drawing by one of their students. And then this is Cavendish School. Cavendish is a infant all the way to senior, but we worked with the year 2s at the school. Year 4s at the school. So not the infants, not the senior, but the group in the middle. And this was really interesting because the students had been learning about cascading in their English lessons. And a lot of the drawings had cascading pipework coming down in some form. It was very interesting to see how they took their learnings from other lessons to what we were doing. So we took this cascading and we took the pipes in the back and cascaded them down. So when the rain comes down, the pipe splits off and then heads round to this gutter where we put little boats in that the students are able to climb up on and play with. And it's been a great success. Again, everything's grown since these photos were taken. So SUDS for Schools, as I mentioned, we've got funding for 14 more schools. 3 of those 2 we are rolling out in the Hastings area. So we've sort of proved that this model works, and now we're testing whether we can expand it further, and then hopefully it will get expanded further again. We've also just been showing off our SUDS, and we were really fortunate to get highly commended at the National Flooding Awards for this program, and then we actually won the category of the best project team. So the things that we're doing in Eastbourne are being recognised elsewhere and celebrated. So it's really exciting to have the chance to do this and also hopefully help influence the rest of the country to be able to do these exciting things too. So last but not least, our flood warning and hydraulic modelling package, which, forgive me, it's a mouthful. It did start off as 1 and then became 2, and also is the most technical of them all. So I might not give the best overview. If you like technical things, I could do my best to talk about it later. So what we've done for Eastbourne is something called an integrated catchment model, which takes all those sources of flooding I talked about, the rivers and lakes, the surface water, groundwater, tidal and sewers, and estimates where this is going to go in different scenarios with different rainfall. So this is quite a common thing that everyone sort of does. It's sort of industry standard, but Eastbourne didn't have one. And this has given us the opportunity to do this for Eastbourne. And it's not common to have this many types of water in the model. Usually it's only one, sometimes two. So this has been really useful for helping us, as much as you can, estimate where water is going to go through technology. And we can get example outputs such as this, which show the areas prone to flooding, such as the lakes you might notice there. And this is really exciting because this combines with all of this data that we've been collecting from the monitoring network, and we are able to make a flood warning system. Hopefully, a flood warning system for everything. So the Environment Agency has a flood warning system for rivers. That is something that exists. But in terms of every other form of flooding, it's not something that's done not only for Eastbourne, but wider UK. So we are hoping by the end of this year, we will have a live platform where people will be able to put their postcodes in, and you'll be able to sign up for alerts and warnings based on the model and also based on the live weather data we're collecting and the live river levels we're collecting to see how water's moving and if your risk is changing in your postcode area. Like weather forecasts, there's a lot of uncertainty in this, also because it's so new and, as I said, it doesn't exist at the moment. There's even more uncertainty, but having the chance to do this means that others will be able to build on our work and continue to make better platforms going forward. So, as I mentioned, by the end of the year, hopefully it's a system that will be live and will be able to be trialled by people in the community who are interested in signing up for either text or email alerts, just to see for themselves. And there you can put multiple postcodes in, whether you want your work, whether you want your home, whether you want your family's locations. These can all be done. So that's very exciting. And as I mentioned earlier, we're just looking we've not got a lot of time left in reality until 2027. It's going to go very quickly, a year and a half. So this sort of phase of our project is wrapping up the things we've done, finding out what we need to keep and what we need to maybe decommission, and we are looking at legacy options beyond 2027, which partners would be interested in taking on sensors such as Southern Water and those sorts of groups, and where in the community we can share our assets for them to take ownership of and all these things. So that's the sort of next year and a half of where we're going. So I hope you've all been paying attention. I have 5 questions for you. I don't have a prize. But I hope if you just count along, there'll be 5 out of 5s going around the room. So, how many sensors are there in the Eastbourne area? Correct. Woo! I thought that was going to be the trickiest one, to be honest. Which one of these is not a form of flooding? Groundwater, atmospheric, sewer, or surface water? Wonderful. You have been paying attention. Which of these is not a reason why Eastbourne was chosen for the Blue Heart project? It lacks a flood warning system. It's the highest risk of sea level rise in the UK. The flooding risk comes from multiple sources, or there are past examples of flooding. Number 2, correct. It's not that there's not risk of sea level rise in Eastbourne, but we're certainly not the most at risk around the UK. What does SUD stand for? First one. Correct. Now, this is a commonly mistaken one by a lot of people. The urban usually trips a lot of people up. But if you notice, they use a little u. So no urban in the word sustainable drainage systems, but a lot of people, especially even in the flood risk field, say urban. Finally, where's my accent from? New Zealand. But I do get the rest of them very often. I do also get Scottish quite a lot, which I thought was very interesting. Not so much here. When I was in Europe, everyone thought I was Scottish. That's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. As I mentioned, if you have any examples of where you've seen flooding that you would be interested in sharing with us, if you want to write it down on a post-it note or go to our website, we'd love to hear from you. And you're more than welcome to just peruse the website. We have a Q&A section if anything crops up in the future and you want to ask us anything there.